We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Our dear listeners, welcome back again on this wonderful podcast. It is me, your host, Otako. Yeah, I'm always happy to have you on Hear My True Story podcast. Wow, for those who are listening for the first time, this is Hear My True Story podcast, where we tell our own true stories based on real life experiences. You know why? Because life writes the best story. Yeah, for those who are just new on the podcast, you can subscribe, follow us on all podcasting streaming platforms. Yeah, and today I welcome you to this wonderful episode of Hear My True Story podcast. What is so special about this week is that we will be discussing the importance of honesty in children and how it affects their development. But before we start, I want to share with you my personal story. I want to share with you my personal experience as an educator working in kindergarten with children. I hope that you enjoy my wonderful story. Thank you for always being on this wonderful podcast, Hear My True Story.
With you every week. Hear my true story.
Okay, it's me, your storyteller, Otako. Yeah, so my dear listeners, welcome back again. Always to listen to this wonderful podcast. What I can tell you, kids are hilarious and they are always honest. You see, I work at a kita, and one day during lunchtime, a child looked at me and burst into laughter for no apparent reason. I could not help myself but laugh along with the child. Then the little one looked at me and asked me a question in German. Warum hast du eine große Nase? Which means, why do you have a big nose? I choked and replied, yes, I have got a big nose. A big, beautiful nose. You see, as Otako, I take opportunity of any situation. So I took this opportunity to teach the child about diversity. I told all the children, look, we are different but beautiful in our own ways. Look around in our room. See, here, I have a big, beautiful nose. You have a small, beautiful nose. Oh, yeah. The other one has big, beautiful ears. Okay, the other one has small, beautiful ears. Wow. Oh, the other one is so tall. Yeah, you are short, but that's also beautiful. Look, we are different and beautiful in our own ways. What I can tell you, kids have zero filters. But wait, there is more. Because I work with the kids, they come up to me and spill out the joy details about what happens at home. I get to hear all their stories. Kids are like little storytellers with zero censorship, I'm telling you. It is both hilarious and eye-opening. One day, A kid asked me in German, warum hast du eine schwarze Hautfarbe? Which means literally, why do you have a dark skin color? I had to come up with a right response, with a right answer, because that child needed the answer from me. So I told the child, oh, that's true. I have a dark skin color, and that is beautiful. And you want to know why? Because I have got more melanin in my skin, and you have got less melanin. Look around in our group. I have a dark skin. Oh, the other one has brown skin. Oh, the other one has a light skin. Wow, don't you see? That is so beautiful that we all have different skin colors, which means we all have different levels of melanin in our skin. I made sure to emphasize how beautiful diversity is. Kids can keep you on your toes, I tell you. It is not just at work. Though I remember when I was a kid myself, I did something that got me into trouble. It is a moment I'll never forget in my entire life. My father was a bit broke. So he had to borrow money from a village money lender. Village money lenders, these were people with some money in the village and they were willing to lend it to other village members. But you had to pay this money with terms and conditions. There's time when to pay back and how much do you pay back at what time. What happens that my father had defaulted to pay the money lender at some point. So the money lender was on his back all the time, coming to see if he can get back his money. So this particular one day, my father tells all of us, the kids at home, if the money lender comes looking for me, I want you all as my children to tell the money lender that I am not at home. I am not there. I've gone for safari for 1 month. I'm not there. So as children, we all rehearsed. When the money lender comes, we shall tell the money lender that the father is not there and he has gone for a safari for 1 month. He's not at home. Everyone at home had to know that, from me as the small one to the last ones who are bigger, to the mother, to everyone in this household, we had to be there for our father, to lie when the money lender comes. When the money lender showed up, me, the small Otako, I spilled out the truth without skipping a beat. I said to the money lender when he came, in my mother tongue, Lusoga, olukwenda kubona baba? Baba ali munumba, alikuulira radio. Abaira atukobye, tukukobe, nti azirawo. Which literally means that, do you want to see my dad? He is inside the house listening to the radio, even though he told us to tell you that he is not at home. Long story short, my father had to cough up the money that he owed. What I'm saying, kids don't sugarcoat anything. This is it. Now, as Otako, a parent myself, with a little beautiful baby who is not yet in the daycare center, I'm already preparing myself for the day she will start reporting on what goes on at home. But as someone who works with children, with the kids, I understand the importance of letting them to express themselves without filters. It is how we can support their individual growth. So this goes to my dear parents. Don't be offended when your kids spill the beans about what happens at home. To us, at kitas, the care centers, or even to the neighbors. It is all part of the joy of working with children. These little storytellers that who will always tell the truth without sugarcoating. How beautiful is that? I like hearing the children tell their own stories. So if you're listening to this story and maybe you have a small child at home, just remember, whatever you do at home, that little one is going to tell it to the neighbor, to the kita, to the school, to everyone around the community. Yeah. Pay attention to what you do yourself when you're with children.
Enjoying this episode? Leave a review now.
Hear my true story.
Yes, my dear listener, thank you so much for listening to that story. I hope that you enjoyed my personal story where children were honest and they told their own stories without filters, where the children asked me questions without filtering or sugarcoating them. So, before I close this wonderful episode, I want to share with you the important points that we should have in mind as adults, or maybe as parents, or maybe as caretakers when we are working with children. How it is important for children to be honest and tell their own stories based on their personal experience of their everyday life. Point number one that I would like you to know. Children are naturally honest and they have a tendency to speak their minds without filtering. This is an important part that should be encouraged and fostered among children. Another point is that honesty helps the children to build trust between children and adults, which is essential for their healthy relationships. Children who are encouraged to be honest are more likely to develop good decision-making skills and take responsibility for their own actions. You see, storytelling is an important part for children's development as it helps them to understand and navigate the world around them. Encouraging children to tell their own stories helps them to build confidence and self-esteem, as well as fostering creativity and imagination. As adults, it is important to pay attention to our own actions and be aware that children are always observing and absorbing information from their own surroundings. This includes being mindful of the language we use and messages we send about diversity and acceptance. Creating a safe and welcoming environment for children to share their own stories is essential, as it helps them to develop a sense of community and allowance for deep understanding and appreciation of different perspectives. So, in today's episode, we were able to just get to know how it is important for these small kids to be honest storytellers that don't sugarcoat anything that happens to them. Overall, encouraging children to be honest and share their own stories is crucial for their emotional, social, and cognitive development. It helps them build trust, learn and grow, develop a strong sense of self, and promote empathy. It has been me, your host, Otako, on Hear My True Story podcast. And thank you for always following us and always listening to this wonderful podcast. Hope to have you again next week.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear my true story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.